What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here, and by popular request we are reviewing the Eureka Whirlwind Litespeed. I recently released a poll on the channel asking what vacuum you'd like to see review next, and a 53% majority of you chose the Eureka Whirlwind Litespeed, so that is the vacuum we'll be reviewing today. So I've been using this vacuum for the better part of a week now, and yeah, better is definitely a good way to describe it because this is definitely a really good vacuum. And the good news is that while this exact SKU is not available anymore, you can still purchase this vacuum brand new under the Sanitaire name. It's a little expensive for what it is, but if you account for inflation for what these original machines went for, it's not too bad, and it's still an excellent machine. And we're going to talk about exactly why in this review. So right off the bat, if you are looking at one of these machines and you're trying to fix it, I will soon do a maintenance guide on this exact machine, and in this video description I will still post links to replacement belts and filters for this machine. Brush rolls, if I can find them, and other parts may be listed whenever I do the maintenance guide on this machine. So I won't be showing exactly how to completely take this thing apart and refurbish it, but that will come in a later video. This will mainly just be talking about the experience of using it and what I think of the machine overall, with plenty of classic Intellitech details and ramblings. Looking at the serial sticker, we can tell that this particular machine is from the 24th week of 2004. So in case you were wondering how to serial date Eureka, in this case the 24 is the week and the 04 is the year. So this was manufactured on the 24th week of 2004 in Bloomington, Illinois. Not too far from here. And since we're already looking at the machine, we'll go ahead and do a basic overview. So starting at the back, from bottom to top, we've got our handle release pedal, which we can press twice to go lower underneath furniture. Scrolling right up here, we've got our guard to help the hose down and basically keep it out of the way, so that way the vacuum doesn't tip when you're pulling it by the hose. You can release it from this, but unlike a Shark or some other machines where there's a clip that you can easily pull it out of, this is actually screwed in place. So the only real way to take your hose out of this is to remove this entire assembly with some screws. So it's generally designed that customers just simply stretch out what remainder of hose is down here, and that way they lose a little bit of hose, but the vacuum doesn't tip over. Scrolling up, we've got our dusting and upholstery brush, which is not the best tool in the world, but it's actually much better than I thought, and the bristles are a lot nicer than on the current iterations of what appears to be an identical tool. This tool is certainly pretty decent at dusting and upholstery, and the bristles are a nice medium stiffness slash softness to kind of be a nice middle ground between being able to dust things that aren't too delicate, but also being effective as an upholstery brush to get out pet hair, which is important because this model in particular does not contain any sort of turbo brush, but it does contain one other duster that we'll touch on in a couple seconds. This stores right down here underneath this little lip, and it's right there. Since it's black, it's a little hard to see, but the newer ones will be gray of this tool, and of course you can put it on here and it will match the machine just fine, so replacements are easy to find. Right here we have the clear intake for the hose, which simply comes off with two clips, very good for clog removal. We've got our relatively long hose, not quite long enough to go up a flight of stairs, but it's still pretty solid. Right here we've got our extension wand and our crevice tool. The crevice tool nestles inside of the extension wand, just like a Bissell or a lot of Hoovers that you may have seen. And just like a lot of older Bissells of this era, the crevice tool is designed in a way that you can actually attach it to the dusting brush and not lose any airflow. So if you're wanting to use this with the extension wand and essentially have two extension wands to get a good amount of reach, you can in fact do that. And with this on the end of the hose, you actually get a fair amount of reach to do your various dusting. And if you want to do any more intricate dusting, well, that's what this next attachment is for. So this right here is the self-cleaning telescopic duster. Now it's worth noting that if you get one of these machines, the duster that this exact model and color scheme will come with will usually be black, and the duster for that won't be quite as telescopic as this one. So this is a replacement caddy, but it does work. It's from a slightly different Eureka, and the hose simply connects right here. Now if your model does not have a duster, then the duster will simply not exist, and the hose would simply attach slightly further down. And the cool thing about this is that even if you buy one of the current sanitary editions, you could theoretically find one of these duster and duster holders on eBay and slap it on that model and have the duster functionality. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that because it's kind of better to leave that parts for the people that want it for their old ones, but you could if you wanted to. And this simply pushes on just like that. It can be a little wiggly sometimes, so it sometimes doesn't feel the most secure in the world. It's not like some of the wind tunnel extenders where they would have a screw that holds it in. It's just simply friction fit onto the system. And the hose would attach right there, so you'd remove your hose from this instead of from down here. And on this duster, it is gorgeous. I've always appreciated the duster on these Eurekas because it's such a really interesting feature, and it actually works really well. If you're not wanting to fight the hose and try to get up into corners and stuff, or try to carefully dust off your ceiling fan in an awkward and obnoxious fashion, you have a legitimate duster that you can just use like any other standalone duster, and it stores on your vacuum, so you're never going to lose it, and you can even clean it with the vacuum. And I'll demonstrate that in a second. So, now the hardest part of this is getting this duster snapped back on, but it's not super necessary. But you essentially have to pull this out, and I just bashed my finger right on the ledge here for the bin. We'll talk about that later. And now the duster pulls out. And again, on this model duster, your light speed may be a little bit different. But on this particular duster, we have this little twist mechanism that unlocks, and now we can slide out the duster like a dramatic lightsaber. And once you are dusting, you can simply dust like you normally would. So if you're wanting to dust up in corners like this, it's worth noting that there is a way to lock this by twisting it, and you can do that with two hands, or in my case, with feet. Again, it's not the easiest, but once you pull it really hard, the friction will kind of keep it in place. Not the most elegant thing in the world, but it will stay. And now we can dust all of our cobwebs and all of our dust that's up the top of things. We can get all the dust that's on the top of my doorway. We can dust our home, hopefully without knocking it down. Push it back into place and keep going. You get the idea. And it's also great for ceiling fan blades, and this is really handy for that. Now, one little trick that I often do, which is kind of hard to demonstrate because my tripod won't necessarily point up this far, is if you notice, if you try to dust the sides of the fan blades will naturally start to spin. And you can see now I've missed a little bit of that dust because I didn't have enough friction to actually grab it. So one thing that I will do often is I'll take the extension wand and crevice tool, and I'll hold this up essentially with my other hand against this, so that way it holds and prevents the fan blade from spinning, and then I'll get the dust with the duster on the other side, and I'll switch it for each side. So basically I'll be juggling this attachment to essentially use it as a brace, and then the duster in the other hand to hold to dust the now held in place fan blade to be able to get all the sides and the top of it. So that's a little trick that I learned in order to easily get everything dusted. So without that, the actual fan blades do like to move out of the way, but that's a little trick I learned to try to be able to actually get this stuff. And as you can see, the bits of dust bunnies that I got, it actually locked into the duster. So that works very well. And then once you're done with the duster, you can push it back down, which again is a little tricky. I'm going to use my feet here. Normally I wouldn't, actually. Seems like that's not wanting to work. So you got to kind of just push all of this back in without pinching yourself, which is a bit tricky. So this part in particular, this bigger section, is kind of hard to get it back in place. There we go, just got it. And again, so some parts of this don't like to lock in. This is kind of the most difficult part. And then now we've got the twist and lock mechanism. So we're just going to push it into this little groove and twist it until it locks into place, just like that. And now we can see that we can slide this in. Now again, you kind of, it's really difficult to actually get this to lock on all sides, but as you can see, as soon as I say that, it pops in really easily. And now there's this little flap right in here that's aligned with this lever, so you can see it's going this way. And when you turn it this way with the machine on, it'll direct the suction from the hose to the duster and suck all of the dust and cobwebs and whatnot off of the duster. It'll even spin it around and get all sides of it, which is really cool. It's definitely a really cool feature, and I wish it was utilized more on vacuums. I'm not really aware of any other brand that did it this way, and other than, as you can see, the actual telescopic mechanism being a little finicky and needing to fight with it sometimes, other than that, this system works very well, and I really, really like it. And it's my favorite part of the Litespeed. Hi, Boot. I paused the video right as she started running by. And really quick, I will demonstrate that self-cleaning duster function. So on my particular Litespeed, the power button is right here on this side. So we're going to turn it on, and I'm going to turn the suction over there to demonstrate the duster cleaning feature. Headphone warning, this machine isn't too loud, which is definitely one of my very nice things, or what's the word for that? Which is definitely one of my likes about this machine. I just forgot the word. One of the things I like about this machine. So we're going to turn it on, and I'll demonstrate that duster. So as you can see, the only issue I had is the ability for the duster to kind of spin around was a little bit hampered. There were some spots where it wanted to just stay in one spot, but just manually twisting it a little bit to suck off each side of the duster works just fine. So even in the worst case scenario, it still works very well. And remember, this is borderline 20 years old, so it's going to be a little stiff, especially after not being used for a while, because it's been a while since I've used this machine. But now that I have the duster, I do tend to use the machine a little bit more often now, since again, this is my favorite feature of this machine since it's so unique. Now again, I have other Eurekas like the Boss 4D that have this duster, but this one is particularly my favorite. In fact, it's my favorite Eureka, which I know some people may call blasphemy with other machines like the Excalibur being really good, but this gets the cake for me. This takes the cake for me, so to speak, because it has that duster and it has much better build quality than the Excalibur, which otherwise would probably be my favorite. So I really like this machine, and it definitely is my favorite Eureka. And that's not the only reason. I'll get into some more reasons in the next part of this video. So in the next part of my video, where I helplessly gush about a 20-year-old vacuum like a pathetic idiot, here we have the biggest thing that I like, and you've noticed it a little bit in the last section, but this thing is super quiet. Now, they advertise this as being quiet, and it certainly was. Now, some people would argue it's very similar to the marketing of the Bissell Power Glides, where they market as quiet mainly because they were comparing it to direct air machines, and it's actually much louder. But this is definitely much quieter than those Power Glides, and I really like that because despite it cleaning very, very well, it is a very quiet machine, even by today's standards. In fact, I would argue especially by today's standards, because while actual vacuum volume has gone down in many ways, the actual pitch of vacuums, due to using smaller and cheaper motors, has gone way, way up, which if you're sensitive to high-pitched noises like I am, it makes the vacuums feel a lot louder than they actually are. And you shouldn't need to wear hearing protection when you're using a vacuum. But with this one, assuming the bearings aren't shot, this sounds really good. It has a little bit of that high-pitched whine, which kind of reminds me of my Bissell Power Glide Platinum for some reason. Again, it's a 12-amp motor. It normally has a deep pitch to it. I don't know why mine in particular has a bit of a whine to it. I don't know why that is. Maybe there's something that I'm missing. Maybe there's something worn out with the machine. Maybe it's the filters. I don't know. But even with that, it still sounds really good. And I'm just going to demonstrate it in the best way I know how. I'm going to continue talking in the voice that I've been using throughout this video, and I'm going to turn the vacuum on, and we're going to see what the difference is. So I don't know if you can still hear me. Again, I'm talking the exact same way. And remember, I have a relatively low-pitched voice when I'm doing these videos, so it may be hard to hear me. But if you were able to hear what I said, then be sure to drop it in the comments below, and I'll be happy to hear. So, if you heard me say the phrase, bacon cheesecake is better than the Xbox 360, then definitely drop that in the comments below. Otherwise, I'm going to turn this vacuum off, and we'll get back to it. So, without reviewing the footage afterwards, since I'm obviously filming this just now, I'm going to take a wild guess and say you still couldn't quite hear what I was saying. But this machine is really smooth sounding, and especially compared to the garbage that previously had propped up in the Whirlwind lineup, this machine is simply brilliant because the Eureka Whirlwind, not the Litespeed, but the standard Eureka Whirlwind, is one of the worst machines that Eureka ever used or ever made, specifically because of the bagless setup and how often those machines would fail, let dust through the motor, or the fans would go off balance and the bearings would crap themselves out just like the first gen Bissell Clean Views and just sound horrible after a very short period of time. This machine never suffered from that problem. At least, I mean, Thomas Rechtenwald's did, but all the other ones that I've seen have been great, and mine in particular runs really good. Now, there is one big problem that happened with it, and this probably explains one of the many reasons why the headlight was dropped from the current commercial version, but one really stupid design flaw with this machine is with the headlight cover. Now, this screw that holds in the headlight cover screws into straight plastic, and given how thin that layer of plastic is and how brittle plastic usually gets after a while, now, keep in mind, this machine, it's in of itself is not brittle, but that particular point got brittle and cracked off. So there was still enough for me to thread the screw back in, but I'm not confident in my ability to change that headlight forever. And there eventually will be a point where this headlight lens will not be able to be screwed back in, and it'll have to just be taped on, which is not the most elegant solution in the world. In fact, the broken pieces for that are still sitting inside the holder for the wand, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. You can see the threads right there on the plastic, and they just broke clean off. So not the best design in the world, but hey, like I said, the newer versions don't have a headlight anyways, and you don't have to use it. Now, again, I've said this a million times on vacuums. I don't understand. Maybe there's a technical reason that I don't understand, but I don't see any reason why vacuums, especially in today's day and age, can't just have a headlight with a dedicated switch where you could turn it on or off. Like, so that way customers who don't want it can not have it, and the people who do want it can enjoy it. It just seems like an obvious inclusion, but no company that I'm aware of has done that. Sure, there are some companies like Auric where when you run the motor at a lower speed, where the headlight will dim, but that's not, hi Rika, but that's not quite the same thing. So it would be nice to see that feature on vacuums. I'm not holding it against this machine because of how old it is, but on newer vacuums, because Eureka currently, which is again an entirely different company, but the current iteration of Eureka does make vacuums with LED headlights on the front. But again, they don't have any way to adjust them. So it would be nice if that was a feature added, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. But the headlight on the Litespeed definitely does work very well. Now, unlike the newer Eurekas, this headlight is not nearly as effective as the lights on the newer Eurekas, because anytime a headlight is on the body and not on the power head, it's not going to be as effective because, of course, the headlight is pointing up when you recline the machine back, and it's not actually on the piece that's going to be going underneath your furniture. So other machines, like the Phantom Fury, did this much better, where the headlight was on the actual base itself and not on the main machine. I know there's other examples of machines that do that. I'm just kind of blanking on them at the moment. The biggest example I can think of is Eureka's own Power Speed Turbo Spotlight. So, and I will review that machine at some point, so if you're interested, then be sure to drop a like on this video. On the front here, we have a multi-position height adjustment dial from high to low. Now, there are some versions of this machine that claim you can do bare floors, but that is simply inaccurate. The bottom of the machine does not contain any sort of brush roller shutoff, nor any sort of squeegee or felt strip. There is no way to accurately vacuum bare floors with this. It scatters debris horribly, just like every other vacuum of this era. The wind tunnels do it, this machine does it, and so many other machines do it. The Bissells aren't as bad, but they still do it pretty badly as well. So this machine, again, is not for bare floors. The best way to use this machine on bare floors is to find a bare floor tool, and given the complexity of the tool fitting that I'll talk about later, it seems like that's not a good solution either. Clearly, if you were buying this machine back in the day, Eureka intended that you bought the Eureka Mighty Mite to go alongside it for your bare floor and different types of above floor activities. So clearly that's what they wanted you to do. So that's what I'm going to recommend you do. If you found one of these, try to find an accompanying Mighty Mite to go along with it, or some other machine for your bare floor needs. This exact version of the Litespeed also features a 15-inch wide cleaning path, which I've said before I'm not a fan of. Now, it doesn't necessarily hurt to have it, That's a lie. It does hurt because you can't get into tighter spaces. And yes, while you can technically vacuum more area, quote unquote, the area that you're vacuuming is not going to be cleaned nearly as thoroughly and nearly as precisely as if you just had a standard square base. Now, there are square base versions of the Litespeed, but much like the Bissell and Hoover equivalents of at the time, they have much less stretchy hoses and are lacking many attachment features, and in some cases, filtration as well. So, you're definitely gonna want a wide path version because you'll have a better quality hose and possibly a self-cleaning duster, assuming the previous owner didn't lose it. But again, while this machine cleans beautifully, and that's one of my things that I like about it, this machine is approved by the Carpet and Rug Institute, so that's definitely really good. This has been proven to clean carpets very well. The brush roller does a great job at digging into carpets, and it doesn't have any issues with tearing up carpet either. It's a nice balance where it cleans really well, but also doesn't tear up carpet, which is very rare. Usually, you'll only get one or the other, or sometimes neither. But this machine strikes a nice balance because it cleans very, very well on carpets, and that's definitely a big, big selling point for it and something I really enjoy. I use this after using other machines, and this was the result. Obviously, ignore the straw wrappers, but as far as all the dirt and the dust, that's really good. And speaking of which, the dust cup removes with this lever right here, and the entire dust cup comes off. Now, there's no trap door on the bottom. This is very similar to what you'd find on a Dirt Devil Breeze. In fact, the setup of this dirt cup is very similar to a Dirt Devil Breeze, but this is still a much better system. So it's hard to get this with one hand, but there's a button right here that I can use to pull this off. I'm just going to have to put this in a tripod. Hi, Rika. We'll take a brief cat intermission. Hi, Rika. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, baby. Hi. Hello. Oh, ma'am, get your butt out of my face. Hi, baby. Hi, baby. Ma'am, don't get comfy. I need to get up. I'm in the middle of working. Baby, I'm in the middle of working. Honey, if I can't work, how am I gonna buy you your cat treats? Ma'am. You don't care, do you? I'll take that as a no. Hello. Oh, hi, Boot. The wind is picking up and it's messing up some of the doors. Ma'am, are you buzzing? She's purring. Ma'am, I'm in the middle of a video. Ma'am, do not fall asleep. Okay, do not fall asleep on me. I'm working. Oh, wow, that's not good. This wind is picking up really bad. Okay, get up. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, she's mad. Hi, Boot. Boot. Okay, bye. What was I talking about? So as we can see right here, here is the dust cup. So there's this black button right here that we push, and then we can move this little guard out of the way and twist this, just like that, and now the top comes off. So now we can remove the filter, which just simply pulls straight off. Replacement filters will be linked in the description. And this filter is not technically washable, so I don't recommend washing it. This is definitely something I'd recommend you change about every... it's kind of hard to say. If you have another vacuum where you can vacuum this off, then you probably don't have to change this for another 6 months. But if you're not going to be tapping this out at all, I should say, if you're tapping it out thoroughly every time you empty the bin, then you probably want to change it about every 3 months. And if you are not tapping it off at all and you're just letting the dirt accumulate, then you'll probably want to change it about every month, month and a half. So definitely the filter maintenance will depend on how you use it, and it just pushes right back on. You want to make sure it's on all the way and it seals right up top just like that. It's a very similar design to the F1 style Dirt Devil Breeze, but the filter is much higher up, so it's going to take a lot more time for it to be full. There isn't an actual full line on this, but the full line technically starts right where the filter ends. So you actually have a lot of capacity, although remember there is a tunnel in the center for the air to go through. And one other thing that's interesting about this unit, which I'll take it off the tripod to show you, is the PreMotor filter was missing on this particular unit, just completely deteriorated, which does happen on these. And strangely enough, this machine is supposed to have a yellow filter right here. As you can see, this filter is yellow. It's supposed to all be yellow. But I bought a replacement and it ended up being black, which is fine, but then I've seen other machines that were the sanitary version that were all black and red, where you would think this filter would be black, and the filter was yellow. So I'm not sure if there's like some miscoordination going there, or if it's just a discrepancy with parts. I don't really know the story, and also this filter feels like it doesn't fit in here, but it does. It is the correct filter. So that's just a bit of a weird issue I've seen, because the filter looks like it doesn't sit in there properly, but that's just the way it was designed. It doesn't have the best fit, but you know, it doesn't really have to, as long as it seals all the four sides, so that way anything that gets through this filter is caught by this mesh. And it's kind of ridiculous how the Bissell Power Force bagless and the Bissell Queen View 2 platform came out at the same year that this particular machine was manufactured. And those machines have a PreMotor filter just like this that's much smaller. And that filter would get packed with stuff, even though there's literally a shroud, so basically a cyclone assembly, and then a pleated filter just like this, and even a foam filter around it. If you watch my channel, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that machine will manage to leak so much dust through into this filter, but also past this filter into the motor and into the HEPA filter, where you'll find pet hair and stuff like that on the HEPA filter. Whereas this machine, despite only having one and two filters technically before the motor, manages to have a very clean motor as long as you take care of the machine, and the HEPA filter actually lasts a really long time. So I'm not really sure why there's that discrepancy, but obviously, as you can see, this setup is much better. And you've got a nice big bin with a nice big handle that you can just dump out. And yeah, so no trap door, but you just remove the filter and just dump the dirt out. Very, very simple. And of course, that makes it super easy to wash this bin too, if you so choose. And it has a sticker on the front, which is very, very torn up, but I'll still show each one of these sections for a couple seconds just in case you want to see it. There we go. Probably can't see all of that, but you may find that interesting. So once you're done with this top panel just pops on right here. You line up this edge and you twist this back on until this part lines up and it clicks back into place. Just like that. So, okay, in this case it didn't quite click, but it is lined up and it is on correctly. And now we can put this right back in and snap it back on the machine. Next we'll talk about, wide angle lens. So next we'll talk about the HEPA filter right here. So if we pop this section off, we have the HEPA filter. Now, later versions of the Litespeed and the current sanitary version have done away with this cover and just simply have the filter that snaps right into the machine, and that is the seal, which a lot of people complain about, but to be honest, I actually prefer that because it's one less thing to worry about breaking. And what we've seen with the original Whirlwinds, one of the things that the Whirlwind does right is that this filter is sealed very well. And when you replace this filter, you replace part of the external housing and the gasket as well. So it's actually a very efficient system to kind of keep the seal going. And as you can see, you really have to fight this to get it out. So it's sealed very well. Oop, back to normal. And this particular one is a little discolored and probably could do to be changed. But yeah, that's what that looks like. And it does an excellent job. So this machine is a sealed system, which was not common back then. So that's definitely made the filtration age very, very well. This machine is approved by the Occupational Safety and Health Association, also known as OSHA. And this filter just simply pops in by clipping in both sides which is easier said than done when you only have one hand to work with. Just slam it in, and that usually does the trick. Just like that. So as you see right there, that definitely is not going anywhere. So that's on very, very sturdily. And now we can take this guard, line it up, and click it back into place. So again, filtration on this machine, considering how old it is and considering how bagless it is very, very impressive. And again, another reason why I absolutely love this machine, because chances are, if I was in the market for a bagless machine in around the $200 price range in 2004, this probably would have been at the top of my list, given all the features and the filtration and how much better it is than the Whirlwind series. At least if I knew back then, if I was the age I am now, back then looking for a vacuum, and I was specifically wanting a bagless, and I knew everything that I knew now back then the Litespeed would obviously be my pick. So the last thing to show is, of course, show the machine vacuuming the living room yet again. Because I've never actually showed this machine vacuuming this living room. I've shown it vacuuming the living room at my old house, but not this one. So we'll go ahead and cap this off with that. And yes, I know the crevice tool and the dusting brush are not supposed to be there, but I'm going to leave it like that because it annoys some people, and that makes me happy. So we're going to go ahead and give this a run. By the way, we've got a nice little cord hook right here, which, given it's plastic on my unit, it creaks a lot. Noise warning. It struggles a bit. Now I've put some oil on it to kind of grease it a bit, but the problem with that is that now it means I get greasy fingers. But it started to kind of calm it down a little bit. And there's also a cord clip right here, which does often break, but that's kind of a complaint of every vacuum, so, you can't be too picky with that. There's also a nice balanced carrying handle right here, and despite this machine having very good build quality, this machine does not weigh a whole ton. I forgot exactly how much it weighs off the top of my head, but it's certainly still on the upper end of what I would consider a lightweight machine. Now this does creak a little bit, as you can hear, and some of these screws have gotten a little loose over time. The handle is a little loose. The whole body does flex a little bit. If you look where the bin is, you can see the body does flex a little bit, and so it's not perfect, but again, for how old it is, you really can't complain too much. And if you get one of the newer sanitary examples, which I will link in the description, you're not going to have any of these problems. So one of these days I will go that route. appears. Ah! So, I guess I just discovered one little flaw with having the power switch right there. As I went to go tilt the vacuum back and I bumped it with the back of my hand. Probably not the best, but yeah, it looks like that little string got caught around the brush roller. It caused a little bit of noise, but thankfully that came out just fine. And other than that, one little incident and the remnants of it, since we're on the subject of showing the brush roller, I can say that the machine's ability to resist the tangling of hair is actually rather good. And I've kind of noticed this with a lot of machines with this style of brush roll, whether it be the Litespeed, whether it be the wind tunnels with the CWP brush roller, or whether it be the Phantoms. A round cylindrical wood-based brush roller, like a lot of the CWP and Kirby ones, tend to do really good at resisting hair tangles. So that's another positive point for the Litespeed. Boots, what are you doing? Okay. So yeah, as far as the results with picking stuff up, and again, you can see I didn't even vacuum my entire living room, but just the amount of sand and gritty fine dust that this got, very impressive. Because that's all stuff that the Dyson Ball Animal 2, not the 3, but the 2, was leaving behind. So that's definitely cleans better than that, which I'm not really surprised. So yeah, that is the Eureka Whirlwind Litespeed full review. Yes, I know this review was an absolute movie, but I haven't seen too many other reviews on the Litespeed specifically. I've seen a few on the Sanitaire version, but not so much on the Litespeed. So we're giving this machine the appreciation it deserves because, personally speaking, it's my favorite Eureka that's ever been produced. And if it's yours too, then definitely let me know in the comments below. And if not, let me know what your favorite is because I'm very interested. So, this is Intellitech Studios signing out. I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know what machine you want to see me review next. And that is that. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day and have a good one. Peace.